Hi guys, welcome back. 4 years ago, we beat this game, and it took us 70 episodes to get through, and we did that with the Dazzle. But now we are back, in 60 frames per second, using OBS. We are finally back to cover the bonus additional content of the GBA version of Final Fantasy VI, but we're on the PC version this time, and I've got some notes. So, this is going to be the Final Fantasy VI PC/iOS changes. Of course, I'm on the PC version, but this does cover iOS as well. Remember that the GBA was a remake, but this is pretty much just a graphical enhancement version of the GBA version, using the GBA in a special packaged emulator in order to apply the assets of the iOS version on PC. And yeah, well, we got a basic screen. Now, the one thing I will immediately say is I do not like the text. It's just, I believe it's just Arial. It's not exactly the best. And the aspect ratio of the game you can't change, even though you can make the window, like, set different, like, actual true widescreen. The window of the game itself doesn't actually change, so I've stretched that just a tad. It's not that bad, but basically just like what I did with the PSP, with the original Final Fantasy, that's the case. So, just so we don't get interrupted, I'm just going to sit in loading screen for a moment, because we have some notes. That's why the music stopped for a moment, because I had to go bring up my notes, because I've got Steam in the background, because there's a lot to cover. So, I'm covering the additional content that first appeared in the GBA version on the PC version, which is based off the iOS version. If that's a little bit confusing, well, first of all, I got this version as a gift. And I was actually playing it beforehand via Steam library sharing, which I didn't want to buy or emulate the GBA version because it's kind of pricey, and that's a thing. And I didn't want the iOS version, or what versions on mobile, because my phone doesn't record very well. If you've seen with Pokemon Go, that's actually quite intensive, and it does frame skip, but that's the best my phone can do. And, well, you know what, the videos are still fine, it's just not what I would like for proper LP kind of stuff like this. For Pokemon Go, it's kind of excusable because the phone's doing other stuff like GPS, Wi-Fi and all that, so it makes a lot of sense. And I realise that my mouth's on the screen right now, but that's because I'm moving windows around, which is why the music keeps cutting out. I do apologise for that. In fact, I'm going to move the window just a tad. There we go. But yeah. This version's got a lot of stuff. So first of all, we're going to be clicking off the game, and we're going to be switching to the desktop here, because first of all, the changes that we have are achievements. These were added in the iOS version first, but Steam have adopted them. There are 28 achievements, and as I've pretty much done everything possible to replicate my file from the PlayStation 1 onto this, because I had to manually play it all over again. There was no way I could cheat, and, well, on GBA I could have potentially cheated, but, of course, I hate because, you know, they had to remake the OST, that's quite bad, so yeah. But this has got the original SNES soundtrack, but I'll get into that later. But yes, every trophy that you're seeing here is what I have unlocked, including custom appreciation, because I got it on this. So yeah, you get all these achievements if you're reading them while I'm scrolling down. These are all the achievements that we did get during the LP. We have got other ones down here, though, that I haven't got right now, which is the Final Fantasy VI Master, King of the Beasts, All Gals Rages, Wandering, and there's even 6 that I haven't found at all. But all the trophies that I have, all the achievements that I have unlocked here, is what we got during our Let's Play 4 years ago, if we did it on here to begin with. Because as I said, I've replicated my file as best as I could. Of course, stats aren't exactly going to be the same due to how I learnt my magic. I can't exactly remember, or I wasn't going to watch every time I tried to learn magic. And, you know, when it came to grinding as well, by the way, like for, oh, what was it called? For the big level grind to get the paladin shield as well as everything else like that, or even with the Allosaurs to just level up in general, I had to kill them all because GBA and onwards, the Vanish Doom glitch does not work. So I had a lot of work there. And yes, so that's another thing. Now I'm going to put a pre-recorded video on here because I was about to close down the game and reopen it again. Well, for one thing, the Steam achievements don't appear on screen when you're playing the game, so you have no idea if you got an achievement until, you know, you check. But that's a thing. But anyway, what I was mentioning about was that this game actually has its own launcher program. As you can see on screen right here, before you even boot up the game, you have a choice through Steam to either just launch straight into the game or go to the launcher. The launcher allows you to tweak the controls, to map them out on the keyboard or on your controller, but if we click the PDF here, this actually gives us an instruction manual and it shows us the controls for a basic controller, and the basic controller design is similar design to a PlayStation controller, and the controls are pretty much one-to-one with PlayStation, save for a couple of things, like swapping the R1 button and the square button around, and the square button no longer, like, you know, switches characters, that's now for R1 or something like that, and square now gives you a tip. So, but other than that, the controls are pretty much one-for-one. Where you would think a triangle would be, that would be like, you know, up on the left side of the controller, so it all adds up, and of course you launch the game as such. So I would actually recommend that when you're playing this, because I'm doing it right now, use a controller. Do not change the button layout because it will get confusing otherwise, and keyboard controls for this game are the worst I have ever used, period. Moving is so cumbersome, it's like spread across the entire keyboard. It is confusing unless you remap them, which I don't really recommend doing, because I think you got to do it every time you boot up a game. That's quite annoying, and you have to boot through the launcher and go to controls to confirm it, because otherwise it doesn't work like that. But if you just use the basic controls, you can just launch straight in with a controller plugged in, and yeah, you can use any USB controller because Steam allows that, because, you know, go to big picture mode, map your controller out, and it will work on most devices, so on most apps and games and stuff. So that's cool. Yeah, and I recommend the PC version for these reasons. 1, it has the original Super Nintendo OST. 2, it has similar controls to the PlayStation 1, as I've already mentioned. Plus, it includes the bestiary, but there are no FMVs or the PS1 bonus menu, because it's kind of accessed in-game with a clear file. As you can see right here, I've got a star here. If I click that, I've got Setzer. And then, yeah, the only reason why that's interesting, considering that we've saved on the Falcon, yeah, it's got a star. That's basically our clear save data. It's part of your save file this time. Basically, you're allowed to save after the final boss fight with Kefka, but it will spawn you on the Falcon, pretty much outside of Kefka's tower, where you would normally, you know, leave a dungeon. You would be back on the Falcon with just Setzer if it was a multi-party dungeon, as Kefka's tower is, and we completed it. The game put us there so we can continue exploring, doing all the side quests, even though we have beaten Kefka, he's registered in the bestiary, and all that good jazz. But back to what I was saying about PC version technically being the best, despite a few bad things, which I'll get into in a moment. Additional content from the GBA version is included as well, on top of the PS1 controls and the SNES OST, and it also has the graphical overhaul from the iOS version, as well as the album and the 28 achievements, but there are no touchscreen / mouse controls, so that's a plus. And of course, Steam, being number 5, the best plus yet, you can use any USB controller that's compatible. So, a lot of good stuff, but people do not like this version because of a few things. So, I'll get into that once we start. So, I could... oh, whoops, wrong button. We've got 5 files. That's more than the usual 3 that you get on the Super Nintendo or GBA. But, yeah, so it's like 2 additional, but of course you would get more on the PlayStation 1 version. But that's the thing. So what I'm going to do is just, for general purposes, load up file 4, because this is technically where we started at, you know, before the final episode, effectively. So, in fact, we're all in the same position. Yeah, exactly the same. In fact, we've got the exact same teams as well. But I'm going to be covering everything else, like what is changed between, like the inconsistencies between this file and our PS1 file in the next episode when we actually continue the Let's Play proper. This is just covering the changes. But as you can see when we've already started, yes, the graphics are redesigned, but a lot of people don't actually like the redesign. Well, they don't mind the redesign, but there's a couple of odd design choices that Square built into this quote-unquote remake / port. It's kind of a weird amalgamation. As I've already mentioned, this is the GBA ROM in a special contained emulator with special coding to add additional things and draw the assets from the iOS version, but mapping them to match what they would be from the GBA version originally. Of course, the sound's been supplemented with the actual OST from the Super Nintendo, but there you go. But here's the thing. The biggest complaint with the graphics in terms of its presentation is the bilinear filtering. It just smudges the graphics, it loses the pixel clarity. You cannot remove or tweak it, and they consider this good for PC. I mean, I know it's following in the steps of Final Fantasy V, which was technically even worse, but the portraits are good. I mean, let's go back to the menu here. The portraits are really well designed. They're actually quite faithful to not only as a faithful translation of what the Super Nintendo original portraits had, especially from the GBA, because they used them for conversations, which they do use once again, but they're actually more on point with their original artwork before it was translated into the Super Nintendo, you know, 16-bit and whatnot. So that is really good, and I gotta say, this is probably the best. I mean, Sign looks the best he's ever been, Terra does as well. You can actually see her lipstick. She doesn't just look plain, she's actually got like some of the sharp lines for her chin and whatnot. I love it. I actually love the portrait artwork of this version of the game. And as a remake, I probably would have preferred a 3D version. Maybe in a similar style to Final Fantasy 13 for this game. That could have worked, considering that the dungeons are pretty plain, corridor-esque, but we're looking at them from a top-down perspective. Making it a Final Fantasy 13 style 3D Final Fantasy 6 remake could have been good. That's my opinion. But this version isn't so bad, because the portraits are well done, and, you know, it's still playable. And yeah, we've got graphical changes as well. So I know I've been standing around most of the time, not actually showing anything, but I'm explaining all the changes because that's pretty much what the changes are. And we're in the menu right now, and we've got a lot of changes here. So let's start covering that. So pause menu differences. Well, for one thing, the graphics are different. The text is very plain, which you cannot change, which I do hate, but I guess because it was on a 16-bit system, if the text was like this, it probably would look like that, but still, keep the blocky design, guys, come on! This is kind of hard. At the same time, it's kind of half-assed, but in other places, there's actually quite a bit of work put into it. I mean, they had to build this emulator in order to make it work, so yeah, layouts of items is a little bit different. Of course, all the names have been updated, so tonics are so potions are no longer called tonics, they're actually called potions, and potions are now called high potions, and I can't remember if X potions had a different name or not, but once again, tinctures aren't tinctures anymore, they're ethers, ethers are now high ethers, etc, etc. Phoenix, well, it's do Phoenix Downs, Antidote, it's now Antidote, all those different little name changes, and that goes with spells as well, but the item layout is different. For abilities, we now actually have tabs for all of our spells, instead of being all mishmashed. I think you can change that as well, which we'll get into in a bit. But, you know, it kind of lays them out as you would expect, and as with the updated words since after Final Fantasy 7, I believe, it's not Cure 1, Cure 2, Cure 3, it's not Raise, Raise 2, Raise 3, it's now Cure, Cura, Curaga, Raise, Arise, and then Re-Raise. The Re-Raise being the auto life, and Arise being the full heal. So, the names have been changed. Plus, if you've noticed, all the characters have their quote-unquote class, which doesn't really mean anything, but it's a nice little aesthetic bonus, and that was introduced in the GBA version as well, so that's kept. Equipment. This is the biggest change. Relics are now included within the actual equipment screen. They're not a separate equipment screen. I always found that really annoying because every time that you change like a relic that affects your equipment, such as having the gauntlet to equip 2 weapons, it auto-optimizes, and it still happens in this version, but instead of taking you out of your relic menu to go to your equipment menu, it's all rolled into one, and you still have enough room for your stats to be displayed, which it does in the originals. I think it's the GBA version as well, because, you know, smaller screen, limited space and whatnot. So, yeah. Status, same as before, but this time, instead of happening to go to equip and select everybody, you can't do that anymore, because when you click stats, not only does it show the stats, it also shows the character's command list, which it used to before, but it's also able to show all of their equipment alongside all their stats. So it's a lot more dense and simplified. Let's get out of that. Now, we have a quick save feature. Now, you can make a quick save whenever, and if you reload it, unlike other quick saves, I'm not too sure if this counts for the GBA version, because normally when you hear the word quick save, that means you're basically just saving the game so you can come back to it later. Well, this game has actually kind of got like an auto quick save function. Every time you go through a door, or activate a cutscene, or come out of a battle, the game auto saves, and that's a quick save. If you reload the quick save, you continue with that exact same loadout, and that includes like the next random encounter. For example, if you die and you reload through, like, by closing down the game before, you know, the game kicks you back out to the title screen or your previous save, if you are about to die, or if you get an encounter and then quit and then reload the quick save, you'll encounter that exact same very encounter. So it is literally just an autosave backup. So if the game crashes, you can hit the quick load, and you'll pretty much be continuing exactly where you left off. But of course, it's temporary, and it will be gone as soon as you save normally, which of course, at any point you can use all 5 save spots. But that's all you get. And the bestiary is now part of our main menu, so we can check that whenever, and as I've said before, it's pretty much a simplified, more laid out, condensed version than what it is in the PS1 version. This is pretty much the only thing from the bonus menu that was retained. There's no Colosseum menu, there's no FMV viewer, there's no character 100% skill progression or level progression viewer, which is what I'm going to be using in the next episode to compare magic, because it has all the magic on one screen. Yeah, it's just basically a condensed version. And if we go to boss monsters here and go all the way down, because if I go all the way down here, I would believe Kefka would be around here somewhere, but we'll see him in the next episode, because I'll load up my clear save, and we'll be able to see that. But yeah, that's the bestiary, so that's kept, and it's a lot more simplified and easy to use. Now we got the album. I'm not too sure if this was in the iOS version. I'm pretty sure it is, but basically, as long as you've done everything and talked to every NPC, you'll pretty much get every single one. There was one that I missed, but I'll edit that in, and that's because I accidentally forgot to talk to someone that triggered a cutscene that I didn't think I needed to talk to. And it's permanently missable, which is dumb. But yeah, so we've got literally all these pictures, and they pretty much give you a little small backstory or little refresher on every major plot point in the game. This is the one that I missed, number 26. I'll put it on screen right now. You get this one by talking to the guy that pretty much shows you the route of the Serpent Trench before you actually go to it in Mobliz. But I didn't talk to that one person because I've played the game before. I didn't think I needed to do that in my own time. Lo and behold, that's the photo I'm missing, so I think there is... I don't think there's an achievement tied to these, but that's a thing. So I'll scroll through these just a little bit more, so you get to see every single one of them other than number 26 that I missed, but yeah. As you can see, it's basically recounting every major plot point of the story. And, yeah, now we've just got past that, we've got past Sid. That one doesn't change, though, depending on if you rescue him or not. I didn't actually save him in this one as well. I was actually grabbing good fish constantly, and yet he still died, and he died quicker. But yeah, there's 74. Now, these two are missing, but we'll see those in the next episode, because these two are tied to confronting the final boss and beating the final boss. So you can only view these two in a clear save. So we'll check those out later as well. And finally, config. We got music at different volumes. We got sound effects at different volumes. Movement in 8 directions. Now, this is something that's pretty interesting. You can tie it to the usual 4 directions that you normally have for every version, but in the iOS or PC version, if I can do it. No, get down from there. I'm not... Okay, well, I'm having a bit of trouble doing it right now. There we are. Nope. Come on! Move diagonal, woman! Jesus! I'm tapping in the diagonals, and she was refusing to do it. Hang on a sec. Let me get out of here. Ow, poo. Okay, that was annoying, but yeah, as you saw right there, the transition is gone as well, and I need to bring that up. Loading times, abolished. They only exist in the PS1 version. The bloody stupid fade out, the cross fade out, that takes about 10-20 seconds to get through every time, both in and out of battle when you run. That don't happen either. Just a little flashy thing, instead of the little zoom in that it does on the GBA and Super Nintendo versions. Has a little flashy animation instead. Now, if I can actually get into it there, now I can move diagonal. I must have been in a place where I wasn't able to do it because it was such a small area. Fair enough, but yes, you can move in diagonal movement, which is what I wanted to show off. Kind of helps to cut a few corners, but there's nothing too dramatic about it, but the option's there. I mean, A Link to the Past had it on Super Nintendo, so that's a thing. Of course, you got your usual battle mode, so we already know about that. We've got battle speed, so we know about that. Battle messages. Battle window. Now, here's the thing. These is actually another one of the criticisms on the PC version, probably because it was optimized for iOS, of course. But a lot of people didn't like the layout of the battle screen. And I guess I'll get into another battle now in order to show that off proper. But here's the thing. Why do people complain that the menu isn't as classical if you keep it on tab left, it is pretty much as classical as you could get. Because I'll go on to default first. We've got ATB gauge, we've got re-equip for optimize, custom position, window pattern. I might as well show all these off. We've got a green, we've got a pink. So the actual design doesn't change, but we got a red, we got a purple, we got the traditional blue, and we got 6, which is grey. The design itself doesn't change. You don't get like a metallic looking background. You don't get the chocobo background or anything like that. It's just colour swaps. And you can't actually change the colour yourself. So there's a bit of a downgrade there. But the plus is that I like the grey. So I can't complain about that. But that is definitely a downgrade. We can also listen to our music whenever we want to, which we couldn't do in the PS1 version. And now I'm going to get back to the windows because I kind of left that hanging. But yes, default is pretty much what everyone complains about. If we get into a battle here, this is how the battle is displayed. Let's quickly pause here. You can see at the bottom here, there's no ATB gauge, but when a character is able to actually attack, their tab will stop rising upwards. So when they are rising, that's their ATB gauge filling. And that little double arrow in the top corner there, if you press the equivalent of the square button, you'll pretty much go into auto fight, and enemies will just pretty much be auto berserked, but you can cancel it whenever. They'll just attack with anything that they want to. But we're not going to do that. I mean, I guess I could just tap it right now. It also speeds up the game, as you saw right there. Everyone just chose auto attack as soon as they maxed out. And right now I can't move, so everyone's just fighting. Realms increasing. And a little bit of a screen tear there, and you have to pretty much just go through the tab in order to choose the attacks like this. Terra just did double ultima of her own volition, and by the way, when enemies are dead you can't choose a command. But this is pretty much the Android version, so you're able to easily, you know, swipe up and down on the character that's already maxed out, and then just tap the one that you need. Oh, Realm learned everything, which isn't really a thing that I need to point out, because this is just, you know, demonstrations and whatnot. So let me get into another battle here, so we can see how the items and magic are laid out. Alright, so if I go to magic here, no matter what window you use, and because we have it on wait, enemies aren't going to attack us, so we can take our time here. These are always in tabs no matter how you have the battle window actually laid out, which is fine because, I mean, what do we want to use? Do we want to use a bit of dark magic? I mean, I guess we could slap on an Ultima maybe. Or we could go to grey magic and use some statuses. Maybe we could buff up our stuff. We could go use our summon, which has its own separate tab. So it's not mixed in with everything or hidden with the up command when you're already maxed out, which is dumb. So let's cure everybody because we're kind of hurting here. Tap L1 to target everybody. If you want to switch and target enemies, you got to hit square. Now you can target enemies. Oh shit, for some reason it... Wait, what did it do that for? It kind of kicked me out there for some reason. But I want to cure everybody, and then I'm going to use an Ultima. So magic, magic and any of those additional menus for like using tools or anything like that. Are you serious? Wow. That's just terrible luck. Let's use Grand Delta then. But you get what I mean, it's like... No matter what you use, if it's tools, if it's rages, if it's magic, that window's always the same no matter what you set your actual command windows to be. It's also quite annoying to navigate with this. I'm just going to run, bugger it. I can't really play with that control set, which is why I don't use it, so let me heal up quickly. Alright, well that was a mess, but like I said, I don't normally play with that window, so there's only one other window option that we can use, and that's either tab left or tab right. If you have it on tab right, it's pretty much the reverse of tab left, so I don't really need to show both of them off. So let's get into one more battle, and I'll show you the windows that you actually want to use, if you do not like the iOS versions. There we go. Right, now we're going to kick some butt. Look at that! Look at that! Let me get into a menu here. Look at this. When the window is fully yellow, that's the ATB gauge. And when it maxes out, you can move. And not only does it not just display 4 out of the 8 commands, and you have to go down for the next menu, or go left for the other 2, excuse me, and then go like left for block, or right for row. All 8 are here, or all 7, excuse me, because you've got a switch option to go to the next character that's listed to move. So all commands are listed here, and this is pretty much as close to the classical variation of the command windows you're gonna get. And this is a lot easier to work with, in my opinion. I prefer this. I like this. Because, I mean, like, I can go attack, choose the enemy, and it also shows you the enemy on the bottom window here as well, which is very nice. So I can go to law, I can go down here to grab delta, I'll use attack here, and then we can go dual cast. Let's go Kuriga just in case, and then we'll slap everybody with a Ultima Ibuski. And we're going to kick butt. And see, look, they fuel up. It shines on the one that you're about to attack with, so it's not confusing. You just choose an attack, and there you go. Tabs are way better than the sliding the sliding versions, the default. This is way better. So if you're going to play this game, use tab left, because it's as close to the original as you're going to get, and it's super helpful. It will pretty much make this game a lot better. And it's a criticism that it doesn't need, because the option is there in the game. I'm not trying to defend this version by any means, it's just the version that I'm playing and I'm covering all the changes, but yeah, that's what I like to call the tab style, which is the preferred classic variant. The iOS touch style, which was the one where it rises, don't use that. That's the one that's defaulted to. Change that immediately when you can pause. But with that, guys, that's all the HD changes. That actually took a half-an-hour video. I mean, I know it was mostly just me sitting here babbling, but you can see the changes on screen when I'm talking about them. And I wanted to cover these before we actually get into the meat of the actual GBA changes. Skip this video if you so wish. I should have said that at the beginning. But in the next episode, guys, we're done with the iOS/PC changes. We are going to be going back to the Falcon, back into the world of Ruin, before we fight off with Kefka. Well, it will be on our cleared save anyway. I'll cover the stuff that we get for our cleared save, and we're going to be going and getting some of the new Espers that were introduced in the GBA version onwards. With that, see you guys next time. We're back for this son of a bitch of a game.